I think so.
This is not fun for anybody to watch on my end right now.
I guess I'm not streaming.
Are you not streaming?
I am now.
Are you now?
Oh, it started and then I
think
heard
so.
my voice and then it paused.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
can hear myself talking
right now.
on your stream.
Anybody to watch
Okay.
on my end right now. Dude, do you not have headphones?
Oh, it started and then I heard
No,
my
I'm
voice
using
and then
headphones.
paused.
No,
Yeah,
anyway.
I can hear
All right.
myself talking.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start yours and turn your sound all the way down. Hey, dog. Stop. 1 sec. I'll be right back. Thanks.
Oh, babies, come out here and chew. Babies, come out here and chew your toys. Look. Give me a toy back here. Can you bring home? Or maybe, oh, no,
Go. This one. All right, so if you feel ready, I think I feel ready to try and give this a go for real. So I'm going to click start recording now, and then that's what I'll upload to YouTube later.
1 second.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Welcome to Can't Talk, I'm Playing Nintendo. I am your host, Dre Alvarez, aka Nerd Numbers, and with me is Landon Flum, aka RixterGT. So here's the basic crux. Landon and myself are children of the 80s, huge Nintendo and video game fans. We both just finished the amazing book by Blake J. Harris called Console Wars, and that got me into thinking, how can I get an excuse to play video games with my friends and pretend I'm being productive? So I decided I'd start another podcast. I already have one, Box Score Geek, the Box Score Geek Show. If you haven't tuned in, you should. So here's what's going to happen. Landon and me have an itinerary of video games that I have put together, nostalgic ones that we're going to play over. While we do it, we're going to talk video games, the book Console Wars, everything else just for fun. And then, of course, we're going to live stream it on Twitch. You can follow myself, twitch.tv/nerd numbers if you want to see myself play in real time. If you catch up, I'd be shocked if anybody's watching right now because we haven't really announced this, but we'll make it a regular thing and I'll put the recaps on YouTube. Or you can watch Landon stream, twitch.tv/RixterGT. We're both just going to play, and try and talk while we play Nintendo, which we've discovered in the past is a futile endeavor, but is a heck of a lot of fun. So that's where we're at. Landon, want to give a shout out, say anything more before we get going?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I'm ready to go, I guess, and...
Okay, so my requirement, I say we did do an unaired pilot, although I mean we both put it up on Twitch. Mine didn't have your voice, Landon, so it was just me having a one-sided conversation. And then of course we learned our first go round on this that it's really hard to install new games, start playing a game you haven't played in years, and try and talk at the same time, and remain cohesive. So we're going to try and give it a second go, even having learned that. So as mentioned, we read the book Console Wars, which is really I would really argue the history of Sega. At least during its heyday, during the Sonic era, when it actually kind of went head to head with Nintendo, which was amazing. And in the book, they discuss a bunch of games that were really popular at the time. They talk Super Mario 3, Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario World, Sonic 2, and then Donkey Kong Country. And so I actually wanted to go through these because the way they discuss these games, it's really interesting. Basically, Sega they talk about Sonic as this amazing breakthrough and kind of Super Mario World as kind of a bland follow-up. And I had kind of different memories, so I really wanted to play through and see what we thought of it, and then just have an excuse to talk video games. So we're going to start with Super Mario Brothers 3. I'm going to start a new file, Landon. I don't know if you can see. We're just going to play for an hour or so, as we go through these games for however long that takes us. Myself, I'm going to try and do the strategy of beating every level on every world. I don't know if we have any specific rules. We were talking warp whistles. So, Landon, I'm just going to say whatever goes, and we're just going to play until one of us beats it. So I've got myself started up. Let me know when you're started up, and we can just get going and talk.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready. And as far as warp whistles, I'll probably not worry about that either. But given what we learned last time, I don't think there's much of a chance either of us are actually going to beat the game. So we're just kind of just to play.
In episode 300, one of us finally beats Super Mario Brothers 3.
Right.
It'll be amazing. By that time, the United States will be a desolate wasteland. But whatever. By the way, we obviously, if you're watching this in real time, but if you're watching this from the future, Donald Trump just got elected the president of the United States. So we might make some funny comments, sad comments, whatever to that. What I'll try and do to make it topical to what we're doing, Landon, which is playing Super Mario Brothers, is, it was one of those cases where Sega was kind of on top of the world console-wise in the 16-bit era, and then kind of just fell apart. So, Hillary Clinton at one point had I think, even according to the most conservative of polls, which would be like Nate Silver, had, I think, sorry, I'm trying to get a P-block, but had a 70% chance to win and got defeated soundly. So, it's kind of the same, right? In this case, Hillary Clinton was Sega.
Just to put more numbers to that, the Bloomberg poll or estimations were 89% chance Hillary was going to win it. So,
and for what it's worth, because I do sports a lot of the time, 11%, that's 1 in 10. And if you're talking like Russian roulette, if you talk to a friend and they had a 12 shooter and asked if you wanted to play a game of Russian roulette, you'd probably look at them like they were crazy. So to be fair on the 11% Bloomberg chance, I don't necessarily even think that we can necessarily say that was wrong, because that's still well within the realm of possibility.
Right.
And I am coughing on a chip. So if you are watching Nerd Numbers stream right now, you'll see me do the one-up trick on level 1-2, where you use a Goomba pipe. That was lame. You use a Goomba pipe, you get a bunch of Goombas, and then you just stomp on them repeatedly. You get a bunch of one-ups, which, as we learned, we kind of mentioned we did this before, as we learned from last time, we're going to need it.
Right. Yeah, and I am no good and don't know any of the tricks, so you're not going to be seeing anything interesting on my stream.
Why don't you know any of the tricks, by the way? We both play this. I think we were talking on last show that, you got a Nintendo late in the game, and so kind of played a bunch of the games over and over again.
Yeah, I only had, the original Super Mario Brothers for, the first year, at least, that we had a Nintendo. And so we, after a while, discovered that you could rent games, which is cool, but didn't own any for a long time.
That was one interesting thing to me about the book Console Wars, which, as I mentioned, we'll talk a bunch, was that was a lot of retail stuff Nintendo had a really weird hand in, both for good and bad. And one thing that Nintendo was really against was rentals. I
didn't realize that until reading that book, and that kind of surprised me, because that was such a huge thing.
But if you think about it, that is how basically Sega was able to catch up a lot of market share. As essentially what the Sega company did is they found kind of asymmetrical relationships that Nintendo had with vendors and stuff, and said, we'll give you more favorable relationships if you are nice to us. So that was definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know know why I'm doing so bad at this, Landon. But, you know, it's a warm-up. And we're actually talking as opposed to last time, so I'll take that.
Right.
Because, yeah, if you listen to the last one, it was kind of like, you know, over and over as we kept dying.
Like,
It was
where
fun.
am I? Yeah.
You know you can press down and slide down the hill. That's always fun.
Yes, I did know that.
All right, well, there you go.
You said something about a spaceship or something last time, but I had no idea what you were talking about.
Oh, okay, so if you don't know this, in the game, if you, and I just forewent getting a bunch of one-ups, I guess, because I'm weak. But what you can do, every level has a coin level, where if you collect enough coins in the level, it causes a like mystery ship to appear. And you know that's one part of this game that you know, if you remember the fun, is there are a bunch of like random stuff that shows up. So I guess the little end houses that you know, have like flip the cards over, those occur when you get 80,000 points.
Oh, okay.
So we were discussing on last week's show. I'd definitely be curious to see what any of our listeners think, although I'm not watching the comments, so it's not like it matters. But I'd definitely be curious to see what anybody thinks about if it's cheating to take notes. We were discussing like the ethics of it,
yeah.
and I don't think taking notes on any game you are playing constitutes cheating. That's my personal opinion.
No, I don't actually think it does either. I mean, I used to do that. Not for this particular game, but like draw out the Metroid map, for example, things like that.
Well, actually, one funny one, for those of you that don't know, Landon's a big fan of, what you call? You're a big fan of, like, MUDs, or not MUDs, just the, what's it called, the graphic, the, like, text adventure. Maybe it's text adventure? I did just grab a whistle, just in case, by the way. For those of you who don't know, you can kneel on yellow or on white platforms and go behind the scene and then go pick up one. So I just did that. Well, sorry, what was I saying before that? By the way, I got distracted.
Something about text adventures.
Oh yeah, you're a big fan of text adventures, and you made one, and I recall I did that for your text adventure. I took notes and basically drew out a map.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I knew where to go to get what and all that jazz.
Yeah, and in that case, that was probably smart.
Yeah, you're a sadistic developer, by the way.
Oops, I just traded in my leaf for flower. That'd be cool though.
I don't know if I got enough coins on that. So yeah, in World 1, the level I'm on right now, if you're watching twitch.tv/nerdnumbers, if you're on RixterGT's channel, I don't know why. Yeah, I'm in the coin level, and yeah, you basically need to hit the like blocks that you hit repeatedly enough times. But yeah, so we agree. So you're agreeing with me that taking notes in any game does not constitute cheating.
No, I mean that's just you playing it.
I do think obviously it gets interesting in games like this where you do have pause, but you know, pause hacks get weird. Certainly Game Genie counts as cheating.
Right.
Okay. See if I can get the timing on this. I'm trying to get one of those one-up houses. I did not get a star, but I can still get a... No, I missed there. Yeah. But I'll definitely take notes on the end house that show up, which is just matching house of cards. Now, talking about cheating, and this is something I have done, which I consider cheating, but in Super Mario Tennis for the Game Boy, which is kind of like a tennis RPG, which is definitely interesting. One of the mini games is a memory game that works almost the same, except it's instead of being, you know, three turns and then you're done based, it's time based. But if you hit pause, you can record, you know, it like shows you the map really quickly before it starts. And so if you hit pause, you can actually see it all and write it down really quick.
Okay.
I've done that, and that will 100% agree that counts as cheating. But I am really good at memory. Oh, what did you do?
I tried to go up a pipe and instead one of those piranha plants.
Oh no! I just transferred my leaf into a fire suit. I regret that. So, by the way, in Super Mario Brothers 3, there are a bunch of different suits. What's your favorite? There's, the Kabuki, or like the not Kabuki, Tanuki, I think is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Kabuki would be interesting. See,
Kabuki Mario.
Kabuki player. But then certainly there's the Hammer Brothers suit. There's the
Hammer.
Frog suit. Do you have a favorite suit?
I don't know. I always thought the ones that you don't see as often were really cool, like the frog, that shoe. I don't know if that counts as a suit, more like a vehicle, I guess. But that thing I always thought was really cool.
I don't know in future games, but do you know that only occurs in this game in one level? The shoe, which is kind of fun.
Interesting. Yeah, that was one thing that was that made this game so fun. Were all the different suits and power-ups and things like that, because it just kind of added. Wow, I just jumped down.
Good plan.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out for me.
Well, as you can see, we aptly named this the Can't Talk, Watch Playing Nintendo show, because that's what happens is you try to talk and
Yeah, as we start dying and things get harder, we will talk in more and more incomplete sentences, I'm sure.
I will definitely try and do the host role where, I at least keep it going and kind of keep some flow and rhythm. Although, as mentioned, this show, it's kind of, I think the advantage is, I suspect we'll get over Nintendo versus Sega in the first couple episodes pretty quickly. And then we can just talk whatever, which is fun. But yeah, actually, so back on that note where we were talking about the game Console Wars by Blake J. Harris, which, as I mentioned, is really the history of Sega, at least under... I've already forgotten his name again. You told me last time, Landon.
Tim Kalinske?
Tim Kalinske, who was the CEO of Sega America, who had come over from Mattel. He had also been kind of instrumental in Mattel in getting Barbie back on the map. So this is, a person that made... What people don't realize now, certainly I remember it from working retail. I think you and I both had retail jobs. I remember Barbie being a big deal when I worked at Target, but I certainly did not remember that there was a time where she was like on a downswing.
Yeah, no, I don't remember that either. That would have been before my time, I guess.
And
oh,
so,
yeah, I guess it would have, because that was before the whole Genesis and everything, which, I kind of remember kind of when that started, but I was pretty young.
Yeah, so, but I mean, between Barbie and Sonic, he was kind of helped for kind of two of the biggest icons of, I guess, the 90s, which is damned remarkable.
Oh yeah.
And his story is kind of it's kind of like Steve Jobs coming back to Apple and then leaving unceremoniously, which is really weird.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who don't remember, because obviously, even with all of Nintendo's steps now, which caused Landon to cough.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, maybe it's not. I think you cost me my 2 viewers. It's 100% of my following. But obviously Nintendo, even with all of its missteps and such, is still a worldwide brand and a big deal. And basically what seems their MO has been since they kind of ruled the era with the 8-bit wars, the Nintendo. Their move has always seemed to be release a really awesome idea, don't capitalize on it enough, lose market share, repeat. As the Wii was a really big deal. Obviously, they've always kind of ruled the handheld market. And then not to mention, Pokemon Go recently. And all of those cases, you kind of watch what they did and you're like, what were you doing? After the fact. So in that regard, that was Nintendo. But there was a point when they had 90% market share of the video games industry.
Right. Right.
And Sega managed to break in the 16-bit era, I guess, so to speak, which would be the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. Sega basically managed to break even with Nintendo. And so that was, if you read the book Console Wars by Blake J. Harris, I'm just going to keep repeating that. You should stop watching two guys play Nintendo and die. By the way, I am happy because I am in front of Landon at the moment.
Yeah, well, that guy only takes 2 hits.
He takes 3, man.
Well, I'm so good I did it in 2, so...
I'm watching you play. You did it in 3, man. So for those listening, Landon is fighting. Is it Larry? I forget all the Koopa. If you know
I don't remember their names either.
He's fighting one of the Koopa kids, and the 2 ways to win is I think you can shoot them with fire a bunch, or you can jump on them 3 times. And Landon is proving that he does not know how to count because he jumped on Larry 3 times. I watched it on twitch.tv/RixterGT, which you too can follow if you want to see a worse Mario player than twitch.tv/numbers. But yeah, I just watched you hit him 3 times. So anyway, that happened. But all I was going to say is basically the end of the book had, I forget which year, but Sega had, I think, 7 of the top 10 games and was over 50% market share. And then right after that, it kind of fell apart. And one thing we kind of talked, which would be cool to have read more about, was definitely the Dreamcast. Because I have no idea what really happened there. And I do remember, the Dreamcast was actually pretty revolutionary. And I think the Dreamcast, unlike, I think the Genesis was a success because they kind of watched what Nintendo did and said, we can do it better. Because, I mean, candidly, I had never really thought of... I always put the Genesis next to the Nintendo. I didn't really put the Genesis next to the Super Nintendo. And even though you could tell me that, the Super Nintendo and the Genesis were both 16-bit machines, I don't think the upgrade from 16-bit to 32 or 8 to 16 was as big as that 32, which happened, with the PlayStation and the
Saturn and
Saturn.
the N64 going 64.
Well, 64 was kind of a huge one, but that what was really interesting to me is that basically, even if you counted them both as 16-bit consoles, the Super Nintendo and Genesis, the Super Nintendo was arguably a stronger machine. It came out later, it was stronger, but it really didn't capitalize on what it had. It's kind of the story we'll tell, although we'll definitely bring up what's it called, Donkey Kong Country, and maybe play it on a future show, because I do remember that was a heck of a lot of fun as a game.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you have that view of it, because for me it was always definitely Super Nintendo versus Genesis. And I do remember that the Genesis was out earlier, which was always a little bit confusing for me, because I thought, Super Nintendo's newer, of course it's much better. I was always a little surprised that, people saw it as better or whatever, but it definitely had its strengths. Like the whole blast processing thing, which...
Oh, that was awesome.
Obviously, that was just marketing, but...
Do you want to talk about that at all? Because that comes up in the book Console Wars by Blake J. Harris, which, he's not paying us to say it on the show. We love the book enough. But do you want to talk about that? Because that was one of my favorite parts of the book.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit too, where they were trying to go against the Super Nintendo's Mode 7, which was they could basically take a texture, essentially, and rotate it and scale it and make it look kind of 3D.
And that, I think, was the first major game that used that. Was that Star Fox?
No, you're thinking the Super FX chip.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the Mode 7 was like F-Zero and Mario Kart, and Pilot Wings was the first, or Pilot Wings and F-Zero, I don't know which was first, but around the same time. Which is kind of interesting, because in the book they talk about Mode 7 really coming into advertising and being a thing with Mario Kart, but they even mention in the book that Pilot Wings was one of the Super Nintendo flagship games, first wave games, and that and F-Zero, or I don't remember what you said. Pilot Wings and F-Zero, you know, are both Mode 7 games.
I do not remember Pilot Wings or whatever for the life of me. I of course remember F-Zero. That was a fun game.
Yeah.
I remember the most fun part of F-Zero was just like you could fly off the track.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, F-Zero was really cool.
And so anyway, so blast processing, keeping you on track.
Right. So yeah. So and I didn't realize that this is where it came from, but the marketing guys basically needed something to be advertising, and so they went looking through the hardware manual for the Genesis and found that found burst mode is what it was called, and it's anybody's guess what that actually means because the hardware guys said that's not really anything, but the marketing guys liked the way it sounded and decided it would sound even better as blast processing, and so there's this always kind of ambiguous idea of blast processing with the Genesis that made it better, and that's how like Sonic was so fast and everything.
Something that was really interesting to me about the book was that they talked about like the marketing against each other and how upset they got at each other.
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, just put in perspective, because as I mentioned this, we're recording this right after the 2016 presidential election, which was one of the meanest ever. And, you know, I think it goes without saying that Donald Trump, if you like recorded all of the insults a presidential candidate has said, he probably like beats 2 and 3 put together at this point, which good job, America. You can see where we're leading. But what I was going to say about that is the insults that these like CEOs of Nintendo and Sega Genesis got upset about, and understand these are both like Fortune 500 companies, is one was the Game Gear fighting against the Game Boy. So if you don't recall, Game Gear it's kind of funny. We're basically, I don't know, are you playing this on your Wii U?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We're both playing Super Mario Bros. 3 on our Wii U, and if you don't know, the Wii U has this giant freaking controller, which is actually kind of cool. Like, I think my one problem with the Wii U is actually that this controller does not really have range away from the core system. I can't really go throughout my house with this sucker, and that would have been really cool to just be able to, you know, walk all over my house and play it like a portable, and then, you know, if I want to play it in front of my giant TV, play it in front of my giant TV. But that being said, basically the Game Gear was a lot like this. This was a big portable console that was in color, and it took 1 billion batteries. I think it took like
6
8
AA's.
It was 6 AA. I almost thought it was 8. It took like 6 AA's, and I think it had like, I don't know, its battery life was not long.
Like 3 hours. It was like you couldn't really use it on a road trip. Oh my god, I'm doing terrible now.
Well, you could if you what's it called, like brought
bunch of
a
batteries.
billion batteries. I mean, one funny thing about Sega, at least in regards to both the Game Gear and the Dreamcast, is they were really victims of just coming to market before the technology they needed was there. I mean, we've heard about this where, like, if anybody remembers kind of the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 2, Xbox first gen, I think, systems, something key about that was that, like, the internet got faster, and you could connect your consoles to the internet, which was huge. But, you know, when Dreamcast came out, basically dial-up was the norm. Excuse me, I think I might name this episode Everybody's Dying. But, you know, Dreamcast came to market before we really had high-speed internet as the norm. And by, like, high-speed, I even just mean, you know, not dial-up.
Any kind of broadband.
Well, like mine, I had DSL, which was, you know, your phone line going, I think, you know, probably something like 1 megabit per second at this point, if that. Probably not even that fast. No, I'm definitely overselling it. But, you know, they came to market before that, and the same thing with the Game Gear, where really they needed better battery technology, and better battery technology just didn't exist. So it's one of those kind of, I think they would have ruled the portable market if they had been able to get the Game Gear a decent battery, but that just didn't happen. And as a result, the Game Boy, you know, because that's what I remember is what you just said about a road trip, was like you could take a Game Boy on a road trip. And if anything, Nintendo actually went out of their way to make Game Boy more portable friendly. You know, I remember what the Game Boy Color, and they made it skinnier, and they made it
the Game Boy Pocket, and
yeah,
like the micro Game Boy, whatever they called it.
They made it so the battery life was better. So, and you know, I think they did eventually do color, and the color wasn't that great. You know, I think the Game Boy Color was still a worse portable system than the Game Gear, but
Yes.
you know, it could last. So it's kind of funny that, you know, on the Game Gear, Sega decided to go for people really want a really complicated device in their pocket, and what they really wanted was a device that would last a long time.
Yeah, something they could actually use. Now, yeah, and the Game Gear is actually kind of interesting because I never remember it being that big of a competitor to the Game Boy, mostly because of the battery issues, and the Game Boy was just so popular, and I don't even know like what games people were playing on the Game Gear. But
How do you open up the little card thing, by the way, to like your little power up stuff?
it's B, I think, or B on the
Weird.
controller.
It's not opening up for me, so that's annoying. Anyway,
I just
did you just use a whistle again?
yeah.
Dear God. you
I wasn't even looking at my game. I was just pushing buttons, and I looked down, and this little cloud shows up.
So for those of you who are listening along, not watching, Landon keeps cheating and using a warp whistle. Although, you know, to be fair, that's what one, what was his name? Jimmy? What was the kid's name in
I don't remember.
The
his
Wizard?
name.
But that's how he won. That's how he got the most points in that
Yeah.
contest.
And now I'm way out of my league because I'm on this really far level, and I don't know what I'm doing. This is a disaster.
Level 5. Alright, well, I'm gonna...
I forgot I even had a whistle.
How did you even... I still can't figure out how to...
Yeah, you push. There's only two buttons. You push the other one. Well, except you're playing like the DS version or something like that.
Yeah, which one are you playing?
The original Nintendo one.
What is going on?
But anyway, like I was saying about the Game Gear, like even today, if you go like hold one, they do feel pretty nice. They feel like a pretty nice piece of technology. They're comfortable. They're more comfortable than this Wii U controller, and they're smaller. They might be. They probably weigh about the same. I'm not sure.
So you're level 5, by the way. I'm gonna basically I'm gonna copy Landon and go along to wherever you are. So you just warp to level 5. I'm gonna warp to level 5.
Okay, nice.
I mean, it's funny. Oh yeah, this is I love this level. So level 5, if you're not watching, just listening, is it's like a 2-tiered level. And actually, we were talking about the boot, and this one does have the boot.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So sorry about that. As you can see, some of us can't play without getting distracted and using a whistle, Landon.
It's totally me.
But what we were talking about, we were talking about the Game Gear and how the Game Boy, you know, they went with basically portability and battery life, and Sega with the Game Gear went with better system, and it turned out that battery life won out. And it was actually funny because in the book Console Wars, they discussed, it was like called a Pico or Pika or something.
Yeah.
And it was this portable device that I cannot convert. I do not know the conversion of yen to dollars. But basically he said if they could have gotten this device at a certain price point, he thought they could have sold really well. And Sega didn't. And actually, okay, so we'll see if you have a better memory than I do of all the characters. Do you remember the Sega of Japan? I don't think he might have been CEO, but the guy who hired the Sega of US CEO? I may actually, you may have me like typing in a sec because I may get a what's it
It
called?
started with an N, but I don't remember what it was exactly.
I'll try and get it up in a second. I'm like, you bastard. You did better than I did. You and I we're at the same spot, and that little guy that throws bricks just killed me.
Yeah, I forgot there were even guys who could throw bricks.
But anyway, yeah, so what happened is Sega of Japan guy kind of actually had a flip out about the price point because of that, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it was really weird how Sega had kind of a different model. Sega and Nintendo had different models, and for a brief period of time it looked like Sega was right, and I argue it's entirely possible that it wasn't that Nintendo was right and Sega was wrong. It was just that Sega did not capitalize on what it had. And sorry, one of the things we were talking about, I realized that I got distracted on was... Oh, that was lame. I had lag on my controller. Oh, so here's what happened.
It's the controller's fault, of course.
Okay, so allow me to explain. Landon and I are both recording this with Elgato. I think, do you have a 360 or an HD?
HD.
Cool, same. So we're both using Elgato HD devices to record this. Windows decided to tell me that I had a virus protection update thingamabob, and that caused a lag between the Elgato and my handheld. So that killed me because it stalled me for a second. Anyway, and yes, I will blame the device. But you know what was just kind of weird about their kind of negative ads against each other was like, one, we were talking blast processing, and yeah, what they did for blast processing for a commercial was they showed like, I don't know if it had Sonic, but it was just a car going really fast on Sega, and then showed like a beat up car carrying the Nintendo characters, and they were making a crack at obviously Mario Kart, which by the way, I think Mario Kart was one of the most fun multiplayer games ever.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I think battle mode in that game was genius.
Yeah, it was.
But, and then one of the other ones was, sorry, and this is what got me on the tangent about Game Gear, is there was like a picture of a dog drinking out of a toilet bowl and says like, the dog can't tell the difference between, you know, the Game Gear and the Nintendo because it can't see colors, but, you know, you're not a dog, you know, and I think they ended it with, a dog also drinks out of a toilet bowl.
Right. Yeah.
So and they got like really angry about it. And so you read that and it seems so innocuous now, even in like corporate, even in the corporate world, that seems just so tame. So that kind of shows the world. But then it's almost bittersweet too in console wars, because one of the kind of things that comes up is just the notion that video games were for a period of time kind of considered for kids. And I don't even know
for
if
a long time. Really, I mean,
well,
like people still think. Some people still think that.
Well, this gets into a really weird territory, which also gets us down the sexism rabbit hole, which I know gamers love. But what happened was, early when video games came out, they were marketed as electronics. And they decided there was a better market for them if they went for the toy aisle. And the toy aisle, you know, was, you know, gendered. You know, you have the pink aisle and the blue aisle. So they decided to go for the toy aisle, and then also decided to go for blue because they decided there was a bigger market in boys. So it is remarkable that you can watch like old commercials of Lego and Nintendo, or like video games like the Atari, before Lego and Atari got put into the video game aisle, and they are much more gender neutral. They're really sold as, you know, families, you know, doing this activity together. And then as soon as what's going on?
I'm
dying. I looked up to watch you die and died anyway. So But yeah, so that gets really funny, and the same thing with toys, where this decision on how to market Nintendo really changed the landscape as to how people viewed video games. Because yeah, they viewed them as toys, and that's kind of weird. And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that's true, and that's sort of how video games were in general, where, like, originally arcade machines were expected to be geared towards adults, bars and things like that. And, so if you look at like old ads, it's always adults playing them, or even like old movies and things like that that have like futuristic arcade machines.
Aw, wait for it, man. I got myself that boot.
Really? I'm
invincible.
I'm struggling over here.
I'm invincible, man. I'm king of the world.
Luckily, I don't think anybody's watching me, which is
You have 3 viewers, and I'm only one of them.
I must be one of them.
Are you watching yourself?
I'm on my dashboard. I don't know if that counts.
Oh, we just lost one. They're like, screw it. No, this is stupid.
Not this guy.
Like, what am I doing with my life? Yeah, I don't know. The advantage of this is, as I kind of mentioned, at the very top of the show, I'm just kind of using this as an excuse to play video games with a friend and not feel like I'm wasting time, because if you're a kid listening to this, when you're an adult, you're supposed to be responsible. And so if I record something and put it on the internet, that allows me to pretend that I am being responsible and productive, as opposed to just playing video games for an hour or two with a friend. Dude, I am doing way better than you. Just
Yeah,
in case
I'm doing like. Really
I have 13 lives too, by the way, and I'm like 2 in front of you. So, and you warped in front of me. So for those listening, yeah, Landon and I are both on World 5. I just completed
Crap.
5-3. I think Landon is caught on 5-2.
I
One of the-
get past this level.
One of the cool things, because I have no idea what it does for. I'll have to watch the sync up. In fact, I'll say I just got killed by a Hammer Brothers, and I'm saying that just so when I go back and watch this, I can see what happened, see the timing. But Landon and I are talking on Skype, and his stream is a bit laggy from where he actually is. So it's actually a lot of fun, especially for things like speedrun, if you're Skyping with a friend, because when Landon says crap, that means I get a chance to look up and see what's about to happen. Which, just, that's fun stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna play a little more serious here. And one thing.
Did you just get hit in the head by a brick?
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I keep forgetting to try going up there. I got a free life. How about that?
All right. Anyway, so you're going to say something about something else, it sounds like.
Yeah, just Mario 3 in general. Like, if you compare this game to the original Mario, because like the original Super Mario Brothers is like a very simple game, and yeah, I cannot talk and play this at the same time.
Games are hard. Anyway, so original.
But like even the graphic style is like completely different. And this
Why-
is obviously one of the later NES games, as they oh yeah, and there's this whole thing where like NES versus NES. Not trying to upset anybody, but anyway, yeah, I'm just kind of rambling at this point.
No, I think it. I remember the push for this game was just gigantic. I mean, it was a horrible movie, but it is worth noting that the movie The Wizard, marketed this pretty heavily. Additionally, it had a huge tie-in, I think, with McDonald's. I cannot. What's up? It had a huge tie-in with McDonald's. This game was a huge deal, and I mean, it's weird because I feel a problem as an adult is like you and I both have played a lot of video games and seen a lot of TV shows, and that gives us the ability to be kind of, I don't want to say like introspective, but I analyze, one of my favorite sites is TV Tropes. And what that means is that I can watch a movie, and what makes me feel special is with my wife, who does not have quite the same, for better or for worse, for the record, my wife graduated summa cum laude in 3.5 years from college, and as you know, I graduated late with you, so who had the better childhood? Who's to say? But, I can watch a movie with her, and I can, watch 5 minutes of it, and unless it is really going out of its way to be a tricky movie, I can tell you what's going to happen. I can probably say, oh, this is a thriller, or this person's going to die, or whatever. And that just comes with having a lot of experience with watching a lot of movies and experiencing a lot of games. And that's the thing about Super Mario the series. I think this is like the first time I'd ever seen something like this when it came out. And I mean, I actually did get it for the original Nintendo. And one of my memories, so if you're watching Landon and myself play, I don't know what your version has, Landon, but mine is a slightly polished version that was released for the Game Boy Advance. So
Right.
the graphics are a little more crisp, and it actually has incorporated save points. And even without save points, like at the end of this, whenever you want to quit, although candidly after Trump, I don't mind if we just stay inside and play video games until the next election. But what I was going to say is, I would actually leave my Super Nintendo on when I got to like level 7, or not Super Nintendo, my Nintendo on, because I wanted to beat it, but I had to go to sleep. So that was embarrassing. So, I just remember just how much of a game changer this kind of game was for me. And I think as an adult, you just can't get that, because even stuff that is really novel, we have seen it. We have seen, even modern video games that are cool. Like, for instance, I think we both like the game, Indie Game, the movie. What's the game in that? How am I dropping the name?
There's Braid, Fez, and Super Meat Boy.
Braid. I mean, even as I played Braid, and it was incredible.
Oh yeah.
But so much. I mean, and Jonathan Blow would be the first to admit that so much of that game is homage or built on other games that, I couldn't really play that game blind. I had to.
What do you mean?
In that, playing that game, I would be able to go, oh, that's like Mario, or oh, that's like this game, or oh, that's just like this, or oh, that feels like blah, right? Whereas, like, I think there is a certain age where you can play a game or see a movie, and it's like the first time you've ever experienced anything like that. I mean, like, obviously Star Wars was like that for a lot of people.
Right.
So, with that in mind, I think that, to your point, when you compare this game with so many other games at the time, I think that's one thing that came up in the book, Console Wars, Blake J. Harris, is that, Super Mario World just wasn't as impressive, and that's because it was so similar to Super Mario Brothers 3, which, I'm sure I'll see when we play through that. And I think that was also one of the benefits of Sonic, because I think Sonic was kind of unlike what people had seen before.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say that's one of the things that they said in the book, and that's kind of how they felt about it. Where, yeah, Mario had been done before, Sonic hadn't.
Although, to be fair, I don't know. I mean, I've mentioned this before. We'll definitely see how I think, but I don't know if I think Sonic unseated or even competed with Mario 3 for me. We'll see, though.
Well, yeah, because they were very different games too. But
One thing. Oh, good.
I was just gonna say, because Mario 3, like, it's got a lot of stuff going on. It's got this world map, which you didn't see as much back then, and it has all the different suits, the power-ups, and things like that. Is almost more, I don't want to say like technical or strategic adventure game or anything like that, but Sonic, like, he just runs and jumps, and it's a lot of fun. But
Although, I mean, one thing people may not know, and I actually feel bad that I never joined this level with you two, but yourself and a friend of ours, Cliff, you competed in like a video game contest where you had to make a one-button video game. And Cliff made a game called, jokingly I'll say in hindsight, HW1 Butt, which I still consider one of the most perfect video games I've ever played. I'm not kidding, and I mean I really think,
Yeah.
actually, I'll tell you this. I'll make you a deal, Landon, because I might have some time, well, sleep-deprived time with an infant, because I'm having a kid in the near future. But if you want to like design HW1 Butt for like one of the game stores, I'd be happy to help develop on that. Because it's a pretty simple game, but it's a one-button game, and that was actually the challenge. The challenge was, oh my god, no, not. Okay, so the level I'm on has these like little waterfalls, so I fell and thought I was going to die, but I was able to swim up. Oh my god. And then I fell off the next platform. By the way, we all do that, right? We make noises and move the controller when we're playing console games as if it matters.
Yeah, definitely.
You are really bad at World 5, by the way, Landon. If you want to use a whistle, just let me know.
I don't have any more whistles.
You're out of whistles? You didn't get 2 whistles in
No,
World 5?
I wasn't planning on getting any, and then you said you were going to get one just in case, so I grabbed one and then I accidentally used it. And basically, I can't be trusted with anything.
I could just cheat right here and use my second whistle and get to World 8. It's tempting. But anyway, sorry. So Cliff made a game called HW1 Butt, which I just told Landon we have to build together for one of the systems or whatever. And I thought it was like a perfect game. And obviously, since you're only allowed to use one button, it's very simple. In Sonic, yeah, you only have you have the arrow controls and jump. And I mean, obviously there's combinatorics because, as you go a certain speed, I'm really bad at level 5 too, apparently, Landon. As you go a certain speed, he spins, and, future games, they incorporate more things where you can like duck and super speed up, and then you can fly as Tails. I think Sonic 2 is going to be interesting for me. I actually remember getting that as a kid. I got it for Christmas. So I'm definitely. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to play Sonic, and I'm going to say I can see how this was novel, but it's nothing special. And I think Sonic 2 is going to be something for me. Although I'm playing Super Mario Brothers 3, and I still love this game. This is still such an awesome game, despite the fact that Landon and I are terrible at it.
Yeah, like really bad.
Just terrible.
Horrible.
Although I actually got up that thing. You don't actually have to beat the castle, by the way, if you don't want to. Anyway. Okay. Oh my god. I just lost the end house.
So bad. Try this other level.
It's a good idea. It's a good plan. Alright, so what else about Super Mario Brothers 3? I mean, that one thing that was kind of sad around this time that they bring up in the book, I mentioned, the plan for this podcast is to watch a bunch of, or not watch to play a bunch of games, and maybe I said something else on the itinerary. I don't know where I want to put it in episode wise. Is to watch The Wizard and do like a director's commentary for The Wizard. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does. And I always liked that movie. I mean, like, I know everybody is supposed to think it's like this really crappy Nintendo commercial, but I don't know, I always liked it.
Well, I mean, essentially what it is it's just Rain Man with as much Nintendo product placement as possible. Which
that didn't sound like a winning combination?
One thing that was really interesting to me, and actually I'll use this as an excuse to talk about another Nintendo property, is if you watch the movie The Wizard, what I actually like about it a lot, and we'll talk more if we do a director's commentary or whatever, is that it's a kid adventure movie, but it's very knowledgeable about how stupid kid adventures are. It really is like you are not safe, you are going to get mugged, you are going to get in trouble. This is a bad idea. And I actually have a lot of respect for that. Because I do really hate the kid adventure kind of genre of like, the kids, let's throw another one out there, which admittedly I enjoyed. But did you check out Stranger Things?
No, I need to. I've heard really
Yeah.
good things about it.
And a lot of fun. Definitely has Spielberg and Stephen King influences. And, for a nostalgia show like us, with our long storied nostalgia past, we're definitely aware of that. But, it should definitely bug you that these, 10-year-olds are, fighting federal agents. Think of E.T. It's like this 10-year-old kid has, an alien and is running from the cops, and you're just kind of like, what are you doing? This is so dumb. And in so many kids movies too, by the way, you watch it and you're kind of like, call the cops. Like, one of you call the cops. Something is not okay. And so I actually did enjoy The Wizard for that, in that it really was, this is not a smart maneuver, kids, but at the same time, what makes that kind of funny, I guess, so to speak, is that, that makes it like a hard, it's aimed at kids to sell Nintendo, and then you watch it and they're like, nah, don't do any of that stuff. Which is an interesting maneuver.
True, yeah.
Additionally, what I'll say, though, about it is, so, if you watch the show Pokemon, which is based on the hit game Pokemon, yeah, thanks. What I was going to say is, Ash Ketchum really ignores the standard rules of Pokemon. He doesn't catch them all. He hardly ever evolves his Pokemon. He basically, his Pokemon, don't like being in the box. You listen to the theme song of that show, and it's like, I want to be the very best, I want to catch them all and do all this. What the theme song goes, I want to be the very best no one ever was. To train them is my real, or to catch them all is my real quest. To train them is my cause. He doesn't do either of that. He's horrible at both. And it's even worth noting that, some of his best Pokemon in the show, are essentially, lucked into. He, his Charizard, he finds hidden on the side of a road. Or, Charmeleon or whatever ends up being the big dinosaur one, and it evolves on its own and is awesome, and it just doesn't listen to him, but it'll win when it feels compelled to. So, he really ignores the message of the show, but at the same time, we're told this message, and so the same thing, Nintendo, when Nintendo did The Wizard, they're like, a romping fun story about kids and adventure, and they're like, don't, no. The writers read that and were like, no, this is stupid. Call the cops.
Right. But that guy knew all 99 games.
Yeah, Lucas turned into a child, the actor is a child molester, that's always fun.
Great.
One funny thing, my wife really likes a band called Rilo Kiley. And the lead actress in that movie, The Wizard, is the lead singer of that band. And she was in a bunch of, I think she was it was Beverly Hills, not 90210, Troop Beverly Hills. She was in that when she was younger. She was in another couple of movies. And I had a crush on her as a kid, so I joked with my wife that I was a fan of Rilo Kiley before she was. So that's fun. Listening to you just play in the background. Seems like a good plan. What did I do? This is a really easy level. 5-7 I've died on 5 times. Is what it is, though.
Yeah.
Alright, I think we're...
Oh no, I'm in...
So I was gonna say, do we want to go till one of us beats level 5 and then call it a night till next episode?
Yeah, we can do that.
I mean, unless you want to keep talking, it just obviously seems like things are winding down. I think part of that is just fatigue, because clearly you and I can both talk. We came in swinging, talking a lot about stuff.
Yeah, and now I'm confused why these platforms won't stop spinning. It seems like they should, and they're not.
They don't all. Some do, but they don't
It's
all.
gonna jump.
All right, so random question. Nintendo original, not Super or any. What's your favorite game on the original Nintendo? Do you got one?
I don't know. I really like the Mega Man games, especially Mega Man 2.
That's interesting. Mega Man 2 was one that really stuck with me. I really liked that one too.
Yeah, and it's usually between Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3 for which is people's favorite. But yeah, for me it's 2. Even though admittedly Mega Man 3 is when things really kind of got into the swing of Mega Man, where it had all the Mega Man stuff.
I don't know if I beat that one because if you remember, like, the last set of levels is like freaking impossible.
Yeah, no, all the Mega Mans are super hard. Well, these are those waterfalls you were talking about like half an hour ago.
I hate to tell you this, I think I'm fading too, because I was like, I've played this a lot and I'm doing well, but then it's like, we could even do another. I've died the same way twice here, where I've just released the turtle shell too early. So clearly I'm fading. I'm gonna try level 6 instead of level 7. See how that goes. But yeah, actually, I mean, that's what's funny about Nintendo when you think about it, is just how many kind of amazing titles came off of that original system. To have Super Mario, to have Mega Man, that's just incredible. What else? I'm definitely missing a couple, right?
Zelda.
Oh, how did I miss that? Fired. Oh,
yeah, and like a lot of the first-party Nintendo ones, like Metroid, which, the original Metroid is sort of a different beast than like the later ones, but it definitely had a lot of innovations that kind of you still see in games.
How so?
The whole the Metroidvania genre, as they call it, where it's the explore, and similar to Zelda, really, where you explore, you get more abilities that let you get into other places you couldn't previously, and kind of this map that you get to explore more and more of in a platform game.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's interesting because, like, obviously the classic RPG is an interesting beast on its own. But yeah, the Zelda Metroid of, like, yeah, and even to a degree Mario, kind of, you just don't keep it. But the, like, explore and get power-ups and whatever is definitely an interesting one. I do think Zelda was one of the most, the very first one is hugely innovative.
Well, that's the first game to have a battery backup as well, so you can save your game. We were talking about that this game, how like your version you can save, so you don't have to just leave your Nintendo on for 24 hours.
Yep.
That was something I didn't realize reading Console Wars, where they talked about how it was the first Zelda, wasn't it? That's gonna be part of their disc-based system. That or was that for the Super Nintendo that they're gonna have it?
What was remarkable to me, if you want to talk Console Wars, is the PlayStation is just freaking remarkable in how that fell through the hands of both Nintendo and Sega so many times.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
So if you recall, Sony was basically gonna design, a disc-based system or a CD-based system for Nintendo, and then Nintendo at the last second pulled out and didn't do it. And then they were going to partner with Sega for their next gen system. Right. And then Sega pulled out. And then they did it on their own. And what also kind of makes that story the saddest, although, I mean, your mileage may vary, is, it had this really weird international cast of crew and characters that came together to make this. And it succeeded, and they all got pushed out. I mean, that's one of the most interesting parts about the book Console Wars, when you talk about Sega and PlayStation, who arguably, came in and upended Nintendo's grip on this industry, was the people that were responsible for that didn't benefit. They didn't win. At the end, at the end of the story, they're fired or demoted or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's really weird to, kind of go, these warriors took on a beast and won, and the end of the story is they lose their jobs.
Yeah, that was really fascinating, and it was interesting hearing that whole story from just the like marketing business side of it. Because being on the other end, we're on the players, the games, and the end result, advertising side of it. It just seems very different. Like, especially that book, and especially from Sega's perspective, Nintendo was the bad guy, and like actually a bad guy. Where, I always grew up thinking Nintendo was the good guy, Sega was the bad guy. Nintendo was nice, made nice games and advertisements, and Sega was, these loud, angry, mean people. But, that probably also had something to do with the people I hung out with in middle school, elementary school.
All right, fair enough. Well, I mean, that's still remarkable to me. And I'm definitely going to see what this ends up being like with a kid, but it was funny how back in the day, just what system you could afford to buy dictated like your friends or what you were into.
Right.
And the penny arcade guys, who are an interesting beast on their own, they've had this discussion where it's like, yeah, when you're younger and you buy a Genesis and you have to convince yourself it's the best thing because you've just spent hundreds of dollars on it, and it's got to be the best thing ever.
Right.
And that was really a weird dynamic. And it was also interesting. One thing Nintendo did that Sega worked really hard to break what's the word I want to look for here? To really break the stronghold on was making very strict exclusivity clauses.
Right.
So Nintendo for a while had it that if you develop for like, it's interesting because Sega viewed this as a you're ruining everything kind of mindset, and arguably though Nintendo did a lot to help the video game industry, because what another fun video game story is Atari. And what was funny is everybody kind of misremembers Atari history because they remember, everybody's heard this myth that millions of copies of E.T. were buried in the desert. Right. And that's kind of true. They actually that
actually did happen. Yeah.
Well, kind of.
Maybe
But here's what I was going to say. It wasn't just E.T. It was a bunch of stuff. So that's the point.
That's true, yeah.
Is what happened was Atari was ridiculous from a standpoint of if you looked at how many games they made and how many consoles they had and how well they expected to sell, it was just completely infeasible. Like, they were basically expecting everybody that had an Atari to buy 2 copies of E.T. Not to say or another way of viewing it is they were expecting the number of people that had Ataris to double from where they were, and every single person to buy a copy of ET. And both of either of those scenarios sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
And a smart accountant or whatever could look and just go, this is, ET is going to sell. And it's worth noting, I'm horrible with names, as you can tell. The guy who developed ET and also did a bunch of others. I think he did Indiana Jones and how am I dropping this? It was like another game. Anyway, he made like 3 games that on the Atari that sold over 1 million copies, and ET was one of them. Or not, maybe not 1 million copies. I think made $1 million, something like that. But essentially, it was just bad marketing. Like there was no feasible way for them to have ever sold as well as they were hoping to, and any analyst could have told them that. So Nintendo did a lot to really go, we do not want to saturate the market with a bunch of bad games. We do not want cheap systems, cheap games. We do not want knockoffs. We really want the industry to not suffer another crash, because that's what ended up happening with the Atari was a bunch of bad games and a bunch of cheap knockoffs and whatever flooded the market, and there, you couldn't really know what to buy.
Right.
But like you're saying, Sega views them as the enemy for this, and Nintendo though is like, didn't you just see what happened? Like, if we don't do this, the market's going to crash again.
Right, and they touched on that just really briefly in the book, but like that really was the case, where like the video games industry really crashed, and so a lot of people just thought that was a fad, that it's over, and then Nintendo came along and showed that wasn't the case at all. And so they were very careful, like you said, and so yeah, like I remember seeing games, with the Nintendo seal of quality or whatever it was, and that's just what all Nintendo games had. And while it seems like that's anti-competitive by some people's views, there was Nintendo had a reason for it, whether it was right or wrong.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, but yeah, I did like that point of, it is funny to see who the villain is, and I think what's funny about a lot of historical things, Apple versus Mac and all that, is the sad reality is there's lots of times where every player in the field has problems, if that makes sense. Like, we're kind of conditioned from sports and stuff to view kind of, good guys, bad guys, etc. And I don't think that's really always the case. All right, my battery's running low. I think I might just do a checkpoint.
Yeah,
and then call it a day.
I fell back to Earth, and it's not looking good.
All right, well, I'm creating a score point. Next we play, likely next Wednesday, but who knows? We will keep going. So I'm gonna stop streaming. I mean, I might talk to you for a few minutes after Landon, but I'm gonna stop streaming. I'm gonna call that good. That was Can't Talk Playing Nintendo. I've been your host, Dre Alvarez. You can find me on twitch.tv/nerdnumbers. If you would prefer to watch a different style of play, you can watch Landon play on twitch.tv/RixterGT. I may podcast this. We'll see. I'll see what I do with the final product of this. I can't imagine it's that interesting to watch, but whatever floats your boat. Anyway, that's been our show. We'll see you next time.
All right, thanks.
I am stopping streaming and stopping recording.